welcome to Big Tent USA. My name is Kitty Douglas, and I am the president of BTU. We are steadfast in our commitment to defending our democratic values, the Constitution, and the rule of law. Our goal is to empower you with facts, guidance, and calls to action so you can become a stronger and more effective advocate for the country we all love. We are so honored to welcome three democracy warriors to Big Tent today. Andrea Miller, returning for a second time, is the founding board member of the Center for Common Ground, executive director of People Demanding Action, founding president of the National Women's Political Caucus of Virginia, and a member of the Democracy and Governance Working Group of the Virginia Green New Deal. Andrea is an IT and political director and a digital and election strategist. She designs and administers phone banking, digital phone banks, and texting programs. And Andrea has successfully advocated for legislation on both the federal and state level. Sandy Radoff is a researcher and statistician who had her own business as a marketing and opinion research consultant for over 20 years. For the past several years, she has spent considerable time as an activist focusing on the environment and social justice. Being co-director of Students for Voting Justice has brought the most meaningful pieces of her life together in one place. Claire Ullman taught political science and public policy at Barnard College and the Columbia School of International and Public Affairs until co-founding Students for Voting Justice in 2020. Claire helped found an emergency shelter for homeless women and children in Seattle as a VISTA volunteer, and then stayed on as its development director and then its assistant director. She served on the board of the Grand Street Settlement in New York City from 1995 to 2008. So you can see why I call these three women warriors. Welcome to Big Tent, all three of you. And Andrea, I'm going to turn the call over to you to sort of lay the groundwork for where we all are in Virginia right now.
Well, thank you so very much, Kitty and Big Tent, and my wonderful co-directors and Students for Voting Justice in Virginia. We are having what may very well be the race of our lifetime. It is, well, again, if there wasn't drama, it wouldn't be Virginia. So we love elections every year, and we are having potentially one of the most intense elections ever this year. Now, what are we doing? We will be electing three statewide officers: governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. Also, for the first time in the history that anybody remembers, Virginia has 100 Democrats running for 100 seats, while the Republicans only have 77 candidates. So this is going to be one for the books. It's one for the books because Virginia is going to make history electing her first woman governor. We've got my best friend's daughter, Abigail Spanberger, whom I've known since she was Abby, running for governor. And that is really, really strange when you realize you personally know someone who is running for governor and you've known them for years. It's like, okay, this is strange, but interesting. And then you have Winsome Earl Sears, who, after her debate performance last week, my favorite nickname is Winsome Lose, who is running as the Republican nominee. We will also make history at the lieutenant governor position with Senator Ghazala Hashmi running on the Democratic ticket. She would be the first Muslim woman elected as lieutenant governor. And then we have John Reed, who would be the first gay lieutenant governor. On the attorney general front, we have the incumbent Republican Jason Myers, and then we have constantly dominating our news cycle so far, Jay Jones, who is the Democratic nominee. Now, for those of you who love following such things, tomorrow night there will be a debate between Jason Miyares and Jay Jones. So the attorney generals will debate. I hope they actually answer questions and both of them talk as opposed to one person walking around the stage yelling like a crazy person. Anyway, early voting has begun in Virginia, and so far, more than 521,000 people have already early voted. This is nearly 2 times as many people who had early voted during this period in 2021. So we know people are turning out to vote in Virginia. Now, yes, using some of my special little tools when I look at the turnout, it is looking to be 58% on the Dem side, 4% on the independent side, and the balance is following up or coming up with Republicans. So again, this is going to be a very interesting race because those of us who live here in Virginia, we really believe for 3 reasons. This race is Abigail's to lose. Number one, Virginia, we are a contrarian state. Whoever is in the White House, we want somebody different, a totally different party as governor of Virginia. That's just us. We do. Number two, Abigail Spanberger is a candidate for a lifetime. She is an amazing candidate. She is tireless. She is a debate champion. And number three, when we look at the positions of the candidates, there is the one who is really coming out very strongly for Virginia, and the other candidate who simply is coming out very strongly for the current regime in the White House. And yes, they've got my early voting slides. So special shout out to the Virginia Public Access Project that tracks early voting every single day. Next slide, if I've got another one. Yes. Now, Fairfax County, our largest county, they just had a special election to replace Congressman Jerry Connolly. They have already turned in more than 60,000 early votes. When you look at Chesterfield and Henrico and Virginia Beach, you can see those 3 localities have nearly double the number of early voters who have already cast their ballots. And interestingly enough, Chesterfield, Henrico, Virginia Beach, and Loudoun all have House seats that we are looking to flip. I want to thank all of you. And now I am thrilled to introduce people who are working with us on turnout. We've already done postcards. We've sent 609,000 postcards to Black voters in Virginia. Sandy and Clarence, students for voting justice, were part of that. We are now running food banks, and I'll be dropping a link in the chat, encouraging you to join us phone banking. So I give you Sandy Radoff, Claire Ullman, students for voting justice.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And thank you to everybody at BigTent USA for giving us this opportunity to describe our work with Students for Voting Justice and how we're engaging young people to get out the vote in Virginia. Students for Voting Justice is a paid internship for college students and has two equal goals. The first is to turn young people into passionate voters and leaders in the effort to expand voting and protect voting rights. And the second goal is to get out the vote in big numbers among youth and in communities of color in important elections. We are an initiative of the Center for Common Ground. We share the Center for Common Ground's 501c3 status, and we share its mission of mobilizing voters in underrepresented communities in voter suppression states. This year, of course, our focus is on Virginia. Next year, we'll be pivoting to the critically important states of Georgia and North Carolina.
So Students for Voting Justice was founded 5.5 years ago. And since then, we have provided almost 800 paid internships to young people. And we are hoping to provide at least 100 more next year for the important midterm 2026 elections. Involving young people in getting out the vote among their peers and in their communities, while persuading them of their power to bring about change through their actions, is one of the most important things we can be doing right now.
I want to take you, though, back in time for a moment to describe the origins of Students for Voting Justice. It was born during the terrible spring of 2020, the peak of COVID. I was finishing up a semester teaching at Barnard College in New York, and I asked my students, what are you going to be doing for the summer? And they told me nothing. Everything, every job and every internship had been shut down. So I started scrambling to find them internships one at a time, and I told Sandy about this effort.
So at that time, in May of 2020, I had become what you might call Andrea's super volunteer for Center for Common Ground. Andrea captivated me in December of 2019 with an amazing data-driven presentation about voter turnout in Texas, and I was hooked. So, of course, after COVID, nobody was doing postcard parties. So I took it upon myself to become a distributor and was walking postcards all over Manhattan, walking 7 to 10 miles a day, handing people packages of postcards, stamps, and scripts. And they were handing me checks to give them work. And so I shared this with Claire, and I said to her, when she shared her story about her students, I said, there are millions of postcards to write, millions of phone calls to make before what we thought was the most important election of our lifetime. And if we could bring that work together with all these students looking for something meaningful to do this summer, would that not be a win-win? We looked at each other and smiled, and Students for Voting Justice was born at that moment.
We never thought it was going to be a long-term project, but 5.5 years later, we have 68 paid interns this fall, focusing their efforts on getting out the vote in communities of color and among youth in Virginia. Most of our interns are recruited from historically Black colleges and universities in the same states that we target for voter outreach. And the vast majority of our interns, at least 95% this fall, identify as African American. This year, for the first time, however, we also have a small contingent at LaGuardia Community College in Queens, in New York City. And that group is extremely diverse, with the 12 interns hailing from 5 different countries. Our interns use postcards, phone banking, text banking, and social media ad campaigns for their voter outreach. A central feature of our internship is that our interns have to recruit volunteers to write the postcards. We require them to recruit at least 5. Many of them recruit many more volunteers than that. And we do this for a few reasons. First, managing and recruiting volunteers teaches our interns political organizing skills. Second, it greatly amplifies our impact in terms of the number of postcards we can send and therefore the number of voters we can reach. And finally, it brings the friends, families, and communities of our interns into the political process, often for the very first time, empowering them as well. However, we achieve our greatest reach in terms of the number of potential voters that we contact through our use of social media ad campaigns designed by our interns to motivate and educate their peers about the importance of voting. Our interns learn digital marketing skills from an expert, and then they create fresh, creative videos that we turn into ads on Instagram and YouTube, showing them to hundreds of thousands or even millions of young people.
And we have real impact on elections. We conduct our get out the vote activities in places where the turnout of youth and Black voters will actually have the greatest impact on the outcomes of elections. Our outreach is carefully targeted at young people, mostly young people of color, and at Black voters more generally. How do we know we have an impact? Well, thanks to Andrea and the fact that our interns do the same postcarding and the same phone banking that Center for Common Ground volunteers do, we have significant data in controlled studies that really show the impact of these outreach efforts. Center for Common Ground has found its postcards boost voter turnout by almost 4 to 8%. And we know in close elections, that is something that can really make the difference. And with its targeted lists and scripts, its phone banking is even more effective. Leaving a voicemail alone increases voter turnout by more than 5%, while a live call increases voter turnout by over 17%. Our social media, however, as Claire has mentioned, is uniquely our own. Our interns have proven to be adept at creating effective ads for Instagram and YouTube. In one session alone, our interns reached over 1.5 million potential voters and yielded over 42,000 link clicks, sending them to sites that give them information about voter registration, where to vote, and how to vote. This led to an average engagement rate of 4.5%, which is equivalent to an average good engagement rate for professionally created ads. And that is because we have young people creating ads for young people on something that is extremely meaningful to them. So now I'd like to just show you one slide that will give you an idea of the overall magnitude of the work that we have done since 2020. So in the past 5.5 years, we have provided more than 800 paid internships through Students for Voting Justice. Those interns have recruited 5,500 volunteers, expanding their reach and amplifying their voices. They've distributed over 400,000 postcards, called over 300,000 voters, sent 850,000 texts, and reached close to 9 million young people on social media, for a total reach of well over 10 million young people and voters of color since 2020.
So as Sandy has explained, we have a very real impact on elections. We also have a very substantial impact on our interns. First, we persuade our interns of the importance of voting, which, as you know, young people are not necessarily persuaded of, and we turn them into ambassadors for voting in their communities and on their campuses. Second, through this internship, we are preparing the next generation of leaders for the fight for voting rights. And we are creating a network of committed advocates for democracy in the very communities that are targeted for voter suppression. We provide political organizing and leadership training, as well as educational workshops on a wide variety of topics related to politics, including how to run for office, the importance of state and local government, and what gerrymandering is. Third, we help our interns to build careers. We teach important job skills, and for many of our interns, this is the first job they've had that is not in the service sector, that's not being a cashier or, burger flipper. And that's an important step for them. And we also provide our interns with one-on-one mentoring by older volunteers. And we have a pathway to promotion so that our star interns become managers of teams of new interns, learning valuable leadership skills by practicing them. And finally, we regularly share job opportunities with our network of internship alumni, and we're still providing references for some of our interns years after their internship has ended. But we want you to hear this from our interns. We have a short video that we'd like to show you that highlights some of our interns.
Definitely pay more attention to politics now. I look at it as something that can be fixed and something that can be changed.
It wasn't necessarily the political aspect that kind of pulled me in. It was more so being able to help individuals that look like me and came from underserved communities like myself, and being able to mobilize their voices and ensure that they had a right and that they had a voice in these matters, these pressing matters within their states or their local communities.
You hear all like the issues that we had over in Virginia and stuff like that, how how certain groups weren't necessarily voting, but it was mainly because no one talked to them about it, no one mentioned it to them.
My mom told me that I was the person who made her realize how important voting was. Until I started doing this and actually writing the postcards, she said, well, I never realized how important voting was and how important like the elections were, because honestly, the lower level systems of government is what affects her everyday life.
Being in Students for Justice made me realize that I want to work somewhere where I feel like I'm actually making a difference and contributing to a project and engaging with people who think differently than the way that I do. And it definitely made me realize that I want my work to have meaning, and especially in the way that it did in Students for Justice. So I think I'm going to be chasing that high for a very long time.
It was really nice hearing speakers, talk about what jobs are in politics or their experiences organizing protests. I met Robert, which was amazing. He was my mentor. And I think that, Robert's had a history of organizing and being really involved in politics, and just being able to sit with him we spoke for a long time in our meetings. We would take up an hour, and I learned so much from him.
The internship gave me a lot more clarity in terms of what it is I want to do in the future as a career.
The work is affecting us as students as much as it is the general population that we're trying to influence. Previously, I hadn't really considered running for office at all, but after some of the group sessions that we've had with speakers such as Andrea Miller on how to build a campaign and lobbying, it's definitely something that I've taken into consideration now.
Having the leadership workshops and having Phil and Abby, our mentors, and as well as having the experience of being a team manager has really allowed me to step more into being an authoritative figure, within a group dynamic. And as someone who wants to and aspires to be an HR executive one day, I think that this has really served useful.
I've been in Students for Justice for 3 terms now, and because of that, I feel like I've grown in so many ways. Really, I'm just a more confident person. I think I'm a more intelligent person because of it.
As a college student, I don't stay on campus currently, so I am buying my own groceries, paying for my own gas, paying for rent. So definitely having the opportunity to get another source of income while also doing something that I was passionate about was definitely one of the biggest benefits of Students for Justice, I would say.
Figuring out how it all ties in together, that's been something I really appreciated. During the process, I was like, why am I doing this? This is so much. My brain hurts. Seeing the results after all the ads and targeting and things like that, I was like, wow, I feel like I'm official. I'm not just interning, I'm actually out. I'm out doing, and I was essentially, I actually was a part of the movement. I was actually out, doing the work. So that's something that I really cherish from the internship, and I'm grateful for the experience for sure.
So we hope you enjoyed that. Our interns really are that thoughtful and wonderful. And I'd just like to point out that Ashante, the young woman in the last slide who talked about the data, she actually went on to get a job in digital marketing because of her experience in Students for Voting Justice, which has happened several times. So, we have found a model that really works, allowing us to engage young people in the effort to preserve democracy by getting out the vote. For that reason, we're hoping to go big in 2026, recruiting a large group of interns who will be able to attract a large number of people to get out to vote. In 2026, we would like to enroll at least 100 interns. These people will work to get out the Black vote in Georgia and North Carolina, where U.S. Senate seats will be on the ballot, and maybe also in New York if we can raise enough money. For the first time, we have a cohort of interns in New York City, and we are in the process of mapping out how we can contribute to turnout in the important elections in that state. There are actually 4 New York congressional seats where voter turnout is going to be the key to the outcomes. If we target just young people and older people of color in these 4 districts, we've gotten counts from a list firm that has access to registered voters. There are over 900,000 folks we can reach with postcards, phone calls, and social media. If we have enough funding, we will look to expand our efforts into these districts. Polls also show that 3 in 10 non-voters regret not turning out to vote last fall, and there were close to 90 million of them. We have a real opportunity among these non-voters in Virginia this year and in Georgia, North Carolina, and maybe also New York next year, as long as we focus on the issues that are important to them. And with our postcards, phone calls, and social media, we can do exactly that.
So you're probably asking yourself right now, how can you help? At least we hope you are. The most direct way that you can help us is by making a tax-deductible donation to Students for Voting Justice. The link to our website is in the chat. We're just beginning to raise money for 2026, and every donation makes a difference. It costs us about $3,500 to enroll one intern, which includes about $2,000 for the intern stipend, $500 for the box of postcards and stamps that we send them, the cost of the educational programming that we provide, and the cost of placing the videos that they create on Instagram as ads. Students for Voting Justice is a very lean organization. Sandy and I take no salaries, and we keep administrative costs low by involving lots of other volunteers in running the program as well. Your donation to Students for Voting Justice accomplishes two key things simultaneously. The first is voter outreach of a really quite astonishing magnitude because of how we leverage our interns' time and talents. And the second thing that a donation accomplishes is that it allows us to educate the future leaders of the fight for voting rights, which sadly doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon. One of our interns wrote in her exit survey, "Fighting for everyone's voice to be heard will never stop being important to me now." And she really speaks for most of our interns. The other thing that you can do to help us is you can introduce us to members of the staff or boards of foundations, of a foundation that might be interested in our work. Many foundations no longer accept unsolicited applications. So the only way to get our foot in the door is to have an introduction. So in closing, these are exceedingly difficult times. But part of the path forward must lie with giving youth a reason to believe in and work for democracy. We have seen how energized young people were, incredibly energized, by the New York City mayoral primary this past June. We have to capitalize on and magnify that energy if we're going to save democracy. And we do that by teaching young people that their votes count, their voices matter, and that collectively they can be a force for good. Our mission since we started this program in 2020, and it's more important now than ever, is to empower our youth to strengthen our democracy. Thank you for giving us a chance to talk to you about our work.
Well, ladies, that was amazing. I am so grateful to the three of you for the work that you do. And, you know, you don't have to do this. And so on behalf of all of us on this call and Big Tent USA, the larger community, I just want to give a shout out for what you're doing. We're truly grateful. I do want to get to a couple questions that were in the chat. Our friend in North Carolina, David Levine, is just wondering if you work with law student interns?
No, we do not.
Okay. There's another question in the chat, and this is, I'm sure you all three read about this, but after the 2024 election, there was a lot of like hand wringing that the calls to action, the letter writing, the postcarding, the phone banking was not effective. It did not get out the vote because there was such a drop off around specifically Democratic voters. So I'd love to have you three sort of each, take a piece of why that phone banking and letter writing and postcarding is so important. Why this kind of engagement, personal engagement, is still something that really has to happen and be invested in.
Andrea,
I'll let you go first, Andrea.
Take that.
I'd love to go first. Number one, because we do outreach to Black voters, please understand normally campaigns and the political parties do not do any outreach to Black voters whatsoever. We lost Georgia because 30% of the registered voters in Georgia are Black. and the Harris campaign, while they had a position to basically turn out the Black vote, they never filled that position. So there was no one doing outreach to Black voters. Now, when you were doing outreach to Black voters, number one, you had better provide information. Poverty, lack of education, lack of internet in many instances mean things that we take for granted, like going to the internet and looking something up, that does not exist for a lot of the voters where we reach out. So we make sure that every postcard, every message left on voicemail gives voters the information they need to vote. And you know what? A lot of the voters that we call, they called us back to tell us thank you. How many times does that happen?
Claire or Sandy, do you want to talk about why specifically you used postcarding with the students? Like, what does that sort of help them understand about their own civic engagement, their own power to be educators, as it were, with the people you're trying to reach?
Yeah, we actually educate our interns about all the various forms of outreach, from door-to-door canvassing to social media. And in the course of our program, we have them get involved in postcarding, phone banking, and social media, all three. And they love the postcarding. The postcarding is probably the best way for them to organize and create communities. They have postcard parties where they get together and they can infuse some joy into the process. The phone banking is a little more challenging for them, but they also are made aware of how effective it is. And of course, they get very creative and their juices flow with the social media. So part of this is education, but the postcarding is probably the most enjoyable of all the activities. And what we found, which is interesting, in the spring, when we had a cohort in New York City, we actually had them write postcards to Virginia. They didn't get mailed until September, but they had absolutely no problem relating to who they were sending postcards to in Virginia, and they were really happy to be helping out in a state. And Andrea, of course, helped make the case and came and gave a presentation to them. But it was a wonderful way for them to get interested in things going on outside of their own geography.
Yeah, broadening their horizons a little bit. I like that a lot.
Exactly.
I would love to sort of talk about, you've got this very big election coming up in Virginia. There's a lot at stake. So for those of us not in Virginia, like, what should we be watching for in terms of maybe a power shift? So Andrea, I'd like to have you address that. As you said, every seat is, we've got a Democrat running in every seat and only 77 Republicans. So tell us what we should be paying attention to as we get closer to the election.
Tonight, I will, of course, be monitoring the statewide, and there are 14 House seats that I'm going to be monitoring every year, well, Virginia has an election every year. So every year I do an analysis of every district, and I look at who are the voters who live in that district. I look at the district by race. These are all the seats that we should easily win if we get the turnout. And there are 9 seats that we are watching. So currently the Virginia General Assembly is 51 Dems, 49 Republicans. My goal is to make it 60-40 minimum. Now in 2017, when Virginia literally flipped on its head, We won statewide, all 3 offices, and we won 14 House seats and lost seat number 15 by 1 vote. We are looking to replicate that.
All right, we'll be watching for sure. So we've got early voting happening now in Virginia. There's the registration deadline is fast approaching. It's October 24th, I think. So what are you doing right now? And could you, for each organization to really mobilize and maximize people getting to the polls early, especially with first-time voters? Andrea, you want to go first?
I've got a really quick thing. Voter registration by third parties and online ends on the 24th. So the
Okay.
first Saturday of early voting is on the 25th. Virginia has same-day voter registration to early voting and on election day. So Virginia is the most empowered state in the South because we have our own version of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act called the Virginia Voters Bill of Rights. So we are doing turnout. I mean, our democracy centers, they do some work on registration, and we tend to work on restoration of voting rights because Virginia is one of 3 states where a felony creates lifetime disenfranchisement. What we find is there are voters whose rights have been restored since 2016 who never got the word. So that is a huge thing that we do. So for us, it is all about turnout. We've got a number of door knock canvases. We've got democracy centers doing pop-up to the polls. So we are watching, making sure we aren't seeing anything shady by the other side to try to make it more difficult for people who look like me to vote. And we've seen some interesting things. So we've got lawyers standing by, and the Board of Elections in Virginia knows I am not afraid of a lawsuit.
Go, Andrea. I love it. And Claire and Sandy, what is Students for Voting Justice doing sort of in this home stretch?
Oh, well, we just launched our social media ad campaign. So the final postcards have just gone in the mail today, actually. The last postcards, they've been sending them out in batches. Those are going out. The phone banking has begun. And I think the most exciting thing is that the fabulous ads that our interns have designed are already running live in Virginia. And the way we target them is that we target our ads to young people, 18 to 29, in the zip codes in Virginia with the highest percentage of Black residents. You can't target Instagram ads by race, but you can target them by age and geography. And this is our way of reaching young Black voters. And the ads are fabulous. The interns are, they are trendy, they are funny, or they are moving, and it's young people speaking to the camera and speaking to their peers. So we've just launched those. They're live as we speak, and we are hoping to sweep up the young voters who have not already been reached by any of the traditional means of voter outreach.
Where can we watch the videos? What is your handle on social media?
It's at SVJ. So the problem with paid ads is you can't see them on our on our Instagram account. You can really only see them in the Meta ad library. What I'm going to do, I've realized in the last week or so, we need to make a tab on our website with sort of over the years, the very best of our student designed ads, because there's really no other easy way to see them. And we're going to try to do that in the next week or so, at least to get that started so that people can admire what the interns have been doing. It's a weird thing that these don't actually show up also on our organic social media, but they don't.
Yeah. I mean, anyways, that's something to definitely think about, because it would be great to have everyone on this call follow you guys and repost and reshare. That's one way to boost it. Nancy Brown wants to know, how do you let young voters know where they can vote? Is it through the postcards or phone calls or social media or all three? Obviously, we know where young voters are a lot of the time staring at their screens.
It's actually through all three. You know, the postcards have a label that directs them to their county board of elections if they have any questions. The social media ads have a link they can click that takes them to a site that has the information that they need. And actually, in New York City, we did an additional step, which is we had our interns hand out really attractive cards that had the artwork that some young artists created for Center for Common Ground. And on the other side, QR codes that took young voters to voter registration sites. And they were handed out at various branches of City University of New York and other places where young people gather. So I would say all three. And, you know, we hope that they will check the box and do it. We do know that the voter registration cards we handed out in the spring, about 5% actually clicked on the QR code and went to the site to get information, which, you know, to get 5% of people to do anything is
It's very
a
high.
significant outcome.
That's great. It's really high. Yeah. Well, I know you ladies have a lot going on. We're getting to time. Oh gosh. Okay. Well, breaking news, the Supreme Court is now poised to undo a key part of the Voting Rights Act that bans race discrimination and voting practices. You called it, Andrea, before we started today.
Surprise,
Yeah.
surprise.
So, yeah, I know. We before we all got on the call, before you all joined us, everyone, we were talking about this very thing. And as a way to close, I guess I would say that it makes the work that you three incredible women are doing even more important and even more valuable to our democracy. So I just thank you so much for what you're doing. And I hope everyone in the who's joined us here today will think about supporting your work. We will include that in the recap. And again, we're very, very excited to be partnering with both your organizations. And for everyone who joined us today, a busy day during the middle of your day, I really appreciate it. And we will stay tuned and watch very closely what's happening in Virginia, and we'll just keep on fighting and see everyone out on Saturday. So thank you everyone for coming to Big Tent, and we'll be in touch in 2026.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, Kitty.
Bye, everybody.